What's up, Outer Banks? I'm Sue Arts with OBXEntertainment.com and OBXE TV. Today we have a very special guest, Joseph Waltenbaugh, and you are an author and you've written a new book based on the Outer Banks.
Yes, it's called Legend, an OBX novel, and I set it here in the Outer Banks because it's one of my favorite spots. I've been coming down here probably since 1980. And I actually came across the Outer Banks. I started windsurfing around 1980, and one year I put my board on the car, and I just went over to the East Coast because I'm from around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I went across to Philadelphia, and I think I went to Ocean City, New Jersey, Ocean City, Maryland, was working my way down, and I was heading towards Myrtle Beach. And I got into the Outer Banks, and I loved it so much here that I stayed until I ran out of money.
Nice.
I think I was here 12 days, and when I had just enough money to get me home. And then I started coming back from then on, and when I just came up with the idea for the plot of the book, I decided to set it here because I thought it was the perfect location for it.
Nice. So is this your first book, or have you written others?
I've done, actually it's it's the first published novel. I have, let me see, I did two other, I would say, novels. One was sort of a novella. Someone one time was trying to bring back the old dime store novels, and I wrote one for that, but the deal didn't go through, and they never came out with them. And then I wrote a nonfiction book. It was actually a satire, and that was 3 years ago. I think it was published 3 to 4 years ago. And as soon as I finished that, I started this one. And I've been working on this for just a little over 3 years. But this was the first full-length novel. But I'm thinking about that little novella. It's partially developed, so I'm thinking about expanding that now. I'm going to wait till the fall, and then I'll start working on a new one.
Nice. So what actually inspired you to write this novel about the Outer Banks, like set in the Outer Banks?
Well, I came up with the idea for the book probably about 1980. I'm going to say 1985. I came up with the plot, and I was working as a government employee at the time, and I was traveling. And I think it was actually in the early 80s when the personal computers first came out. And I went out and bought one. And I remember I had a friend saying, "What are you going to do with a computer?" And what I did is I just wanted the word processing. And I was in a hotel every night, and I'd always enjoyed writing, so I started writing. And actually the plot of this book, I think I hashed out maybe the first 5 to 7 chapters of it, just an idea. And they were actually saved on those big 5.5-inch floppy disks, the big actual floppy ones. And then at some point I transferred them to the, I think, 3.25-inch ones. And then the project died because I got involved with other things. My job, I was promoted, so I had more responsibility. And I wasn't traveling, so I wasn't writing anymore in the hotels. But I always remembered the plot of it, and when I left my job and wrote the other book, then when I was finished with that, I said, "Well, what do I do now?" And I said, "Boy, I wonder if I still have the stuff from the Legend," because I had it named back at that point too. And I started looking, and I never made a printed copy of it. So I started thinking, whatever happened to those floppy disks? And I remember throwing tons of those away once the computers changed, and I could have just kicked myself. And I tried to remember what was what. I knew who the main character was going to be, but I thought, I had some certain things figured out. And I have like a roll-top desk, and it's got all the little compartments. And I had an elderly neighbor across the street who used to travel to all the yard sales. He'd always buy me things and bring them home.
Nice.
And he one time found something from the old post office where they had the old post office box, and it was my house number. It was at 127. And he gave it to me. It was the whole unit. And I looked, and it fit right in one of those compartments. So I had that in there. And I looked down at it, and something flashed through my memory, and I thought, I remember putting those floppy disks in there. And I pulled that out, and there they all were. But I had nothing to read them. You can't plop those into the computers these days.
Right.
So I got on the internet and tried to find something that I could actually do a conversion. I found something for $5, and it didn't work. Sent it back, and I found something for $3, and it brought it up on the screen. So I immediately saved
Yeah.
I didn't want to lose it while it was there. And it was just a block of text. Each chapter was a block of text. And I was able to save them as a text document and went in and was able to see what I was thinking back at that time. But the nice thing about the characters is they're mostly modeled after real people. So I didn't lose the characters because I always remember them and I know who they are, and it made it easier writing because you don't have to. I found out there are some fictional characters in there, but some appear early in the novel and appear at the late. And the first draft took 7 months to write, I think.
Wow.
So 7 months later, all of a sudden I'm writing about this fictional character and I can't remember anything about her. What colors her eyes, what colors her hair, what was her voice like. But the real people, I never had to think about that because I know these people and I know what they look like. So every time I write about them, they're already fresh in my memory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing, and some of them know who they are and some of them don't.
So did you like change the names to protect the...
The names have changed, except for, I mean, there are some real people, especially the local people here. And I think when I came in, I was asking if you knew Ace, who lives down in Wellbone Junction. I can't think what Ace's real name is, Arthur C. Ellington or something like that. And he's sort of a, a colorful character. I came down 3 years ago and did scouted everything out to see where I wanted to set the scenes. I came back last year just to look at everything to make sure it was the same as it was. And the house I was renting, I met the landlord, and I explained to him why I was there. And I told him where the scenes were, and there was a scene at the Nag's Head Pier.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Oh no, you want to do that at the Outer Banks Pier. You want to go down there. Fish has bars down there." And he goes, "That'd be the great. Go down there and check that out. That's where you want to go." Gary Oliver owns that place.
Mm-hmm.
So I go down there and I meet Gary Oliver, and I said, "He's right. I'm going to change the scene to here." People at the Nag's Head Pier probably weren't going to like this, but I did. And I said to him, "By the way, coming down towards there," I said, "there's this little house. It's almost like a shack, and this open garage, and at night there's these twinkle lights around it." And I said, "Years ago, I mistook that for an open-air bar when I first came down here. And I always wanted to stop, but then during the day I wouldn't see it. But then when I would, I'd see a little man sitting in there with a long white beard." He goes, "Oh, that's Ace. That's Ace." I said, "Boy, I'd love to pull in and talk to him." He goes, "Pull in. Just pull in and start talking to him. He's a wonderful man." So I drove down there and I pulled in and I told Ace who I was, and we sat down there and he showed me his house, and I said, "Ace, would you mind if I put you in the book?" He goes, "Oh, no, that's fine. You can put me in there." Because I'm in National Geographic magazine. He goes, "Somebody came by here and they started photographing me. I'm in the magazine." And Ace, he had such a colorful past, and he was such a wonderful person. I said, "Well, Ace, I'm going to put you in there." So I guess that was 2 years ago. Last year I'm here, and I'm standing at the bar with Ace down at Fish's, because he's always there. And I said, "Oh, Ace, the book's not out yet, but I came back, and there was a scene at Pirates Cove, the restaurant above Pirates Cove.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Blue Water Grill and Raw Bar.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, it was something else, and it was Hurricane Moe's.
Right.
I wrote the scene when it was the one in between. When I go down there, it's boarded up. I'm thinking, oh, things keep changing. Things keep changing on me. When the book comes out, I want everything to be where it is. He goes, "Well, you should put this disclaimer at the beginning of the book that says, this is the Outer Banks.
Right.
And things change in the Outer Banks. People come and go and this and that." I said, "That's a good idea, Ace. I'm going to do that." Well, how prescient was that? Because Ace's house burns down.
Oh, no.
3 weeks,
terrible.
2 months ago. And I said, Ace must have known because his house burned out, but I said, "No matter what with your house, I'm keeping exactly the way it was because it was just such a special place." And so I stopped at his house the other day, and he has macular degeneration. He can't read, and he can't see very well. He's legally blind. And so I read the little account of Ace in the story to ask him how he liked it. And he said, "Do you like that, Ace?" I said, "I didn't offend you with anything." He goes, "Oh, no." And so he's listed as a real person. I mentioned Mojo Collins in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I recreate the scene between me and Mojo Collins back in the early 90s. And actually, the way it happened between us is I stick the character in my situation and just do it. And so I list his name. I sent him a copy of the book. I hope he doesn't dislike the fact that I used his name. I don't think it was. I said nice things about him. And the same thing with all the locations. They're all real locations. And I play up the best parts of the restaurants and bars, like Miller's Waterfront Restaurant, Mulligan's. Mulligan's is in the book an awful lot because the one character is sort of a vagabond, windsurfer, surfer, kiteboarder, and he hangs out at Mulligan's because he knows the bartender at Mulligan's. So Mulligan's is probably in probably 9 of the 14 chapters. And I put Tail of the Whale in there because
I used to work there, I'm sorry.
There's a character in the book named Gary. And Gary lived behind me. We grew up together as boys. And actually the book starts off with young boys camping in a tent behind their house. And that's where we used to camp. And we grew up and our families were best friends, so we were raised as brothers. And because we all went on vacation together, you know, the two families. And Gary died just before I started writing this. He was an English teacher, and he was always my proofreader. And he died, and he loved the Outer Banks. He loved the Outer Banks so much. And actually, he came on his honeymoon, brought his wife, his new wife, with us when we came down here the first time, the second time. And then I went with his family every year, and they had the kids, they raised the kids and everything. But he loved it so much, I made him a character in the book. And and I don't know where I was going with that. I started talking about Garrett. Oh, I was talking about the tail of the whale, but he loved the tail of the whale. So I wanted to put the tail of the whale in there, and actually I almost moved the one scene when the place at Pirates Cove closed down. I was going to move it to the tail of the whale, but I needed the marina, so I needed to move it back. And so I moved it back there, but I found a way to put the tail of the whale in it because Gary loved it so much there. And the people at the tail, I think it's Carol and Kathy.
Yes. And
they're carrying the book. They have the book there. They have baskets sitting right by the checkout. I'm trying to think where. I've got the book placed in several places right now. It's at 2 on a Sandbar has a couple. At Jockey's, right across from Jockey's Ridge, Jockey's Ridge Crossing. Cavalier Surf Shop is carrying the book. Mike Kelly has it in his gift shop.
Nice.
And I'm going to stop and see Shannon at Gus's wife from Mulligan's. What's nice about that, Shannon actually contacted me before I saw Gus on the first night and gave him the book. I think he took it home and just gave it to his wife, and she sat down and read it. And I got an email from her the other day saying, "My name's Shannon, I'm Gus's wife, and I'm reading your book." And she goes, "I'm an avid reader, and I'm already on page 253.
Nice.
And I already know I want to sell this book in my restaurant.
Right.
So when I leave here, I'm going up to see Shannon."
Awesome.
And I'm supposed to hear today from the Portical. I hope the Portical does carry it because there's 2 major scenes in the book that take place in the Portical restaurant. And Body Island Lighthouse is
I still think it's Bodie.
it runs through the whole book. And so I took a copy down to the Rangers down there.
Nice.
And a lot of places. I have like nasty things happening on the main sand dune at Jockey's Ridge. Burying bodies down in the Coquina Beach. Actually, I stopped down there and talked to some lifeguards a couple of years ago, and I was asking things about the beach. I said, "Yeah, I want to bury a body around here." And they looked at me like, I explained to them what was going on. I go, "Yeah, we're going to remember you because if something turns up here, we know where it came from." But yeah, the story. I like the setting for the Outer Banks, and like I say, you asked me if I know the people. They all don't know each other, or they don't know they're in it. Some of them do. I think some of them could figure out that it's them. But I remember, but they're characters that I remember years ago. Now they're older, so they're not the same people they were then.
Right. Well, in a book, they're timeless. So.
That's right.
And when I was reading just the overall description of your book, I think you said it was like Frankie and Annette meets Hannibal Lecter, and I was like, ooh, we're gonna like that guy.
I wanted to have I wanted it to be a summer beach novel, but I wanted it to have that light, airy thing like an old beach blanket bingo type thing with Frankie and Annette. But I also wanted those ominous overtones of some menacing evil, and it's almost, and it would be like Frankie and Annette meet Hannibal Lecter. And I told somebody down here, I don't think who it was when I was writing this, she goes, "Oh, that sounds scary. Do you really want to scare them down here?" I said, "Well, I mean, it adds. I mean, there's romance, there's comedy, and there's danger, there's murder." Actually, we were putting, I'm a sailor, so I sold an earlier boat to a gentleman, and he always calls me every year to help him put it in. So we had just raised the mast, and we launched it. And we're sitting at the restaurant eating. And he brought another friend, and I think his name was Bill Geiger. And Bill Geiger goes, "Well, what's the book?" We got talking about the book. He goes, "Well, what's it about?" And I said, "Oh, wait a minute." I pulled up the website on the book, and I read him this one part where it says, it's a story of death, destruction, revelation, and redemption, set in a land where pirates once roamed, ghost stories abound, and people are known to vanish without a trace. And he goes, "Is there really redemption in that book?" I said, "Yes, there is." He goes, "I'm not so sure about it. I'll buy the other stuff, but I'm not buying the redemption." And I said, "There is redemption in that book." He goes, "Well, I'll be the judge of that." And I forgot that my friends were just here, and they just left, and his wife had just finished reading the book, and their husband. And I just sent them a note this morning. I said, "Do you remember we were talking to that Bill? And he said there was no redemption in the book. What do you think? Is there?" And I haven't heard back from them yet, but I'm sure there's redemption in that book.
Nice. Nice. So it sounds like a really great book for people, like vacationers who are coming here during summer, because it's set in that time of year here on the Outer Banks. And
I think so. I think it would be good because you can actually go to the places if you want. You can actually sit in the seats where they're sitting and the action is occurring. My friend's wife, when we went to Mulligan's one night, she goes, "Where's Dave's favorite seat?" I said, "Well, you read the book, you should know. It's upstairs." So we went upstairs. She goes, "Is this it?" And he says, "Yeah." And he goes, "And where was Nikki sitting?" I turned, I said, "She was right there, outside on the deck." She goes, "Right there, there's a table out there." I said, "Yes." And the idea that gave me that idea was, back in the early 90s, I did a lot of photography. And I was having exhibits and everything. And I'd gone to the Southwest, the Four Corners area, and I spent a week just traveling and photographing. Went back and had an exhibit in my hometown. And so the next trip I took was to California. So I flew into Los Angeles, and I was going to go up into Big Sur area and then over Yosemite. So I'm driving up the Pacific Coast Highway, heading out of Los Angeles. I was actually in the Malibu area, and I see this old weather sign, and it said Paradise Cove, and it pointed down through some pine trees over the hill. And I had always been a big Rockford Files fan. I used to watch the show.
I used to watch that show too.
And I remember Jim Rockford lived in Paradise Cove.
That's right.
In a trailer outside the Sandcastle restaurant. In sort of a ritzy area of Malibu, but he had this trailer in Malibu, so he had a Malibu address. Well, I just saw that sign, and I said, "Oh, I can't leave here without saying I was in Paradise Cove where Jim Rock." So I immediately turned off the road, and I went down through, and as I came out, I was just stunned, because all of a sudden, there is the Sandcastle restaurant. And I'm thinking, this isn't a made-up setting, this is real.
Right.
So I jumped out of my car, and I looked over, and there was the cliff, and there was the concrete pad where the trailer had sat.
Right.
And the blocks were still there that the trailer had been sitting in there. And there was the beach and the pier where Jim Rockford, in the beginning of the show, he's out there fishing with his dad. And I said, "This is all real." And I'm standing where his trailer was and looking at the parking lot and saying, remembering all the car chases and the fights and the abductions that took place in the parking lot. And I thought it was the neatest thing. So of course I had to go into the restaurant and have lunch.
Right.
So I'm sitting in the Sandcastle restaurant just looking around, surrounded by pictures of James Gardner and Joe Santos and Stuart Manglin, I think, played Angel Martin. I can't think if that's his real name. And so when I wrote this, I said, I want to get that same feeling into this, where someone, even though they've never been here, but they read that book and they arrive and they say, you know, this is just like it was in the book. And when I came through 3 years ago, I stopped at that Welcome Center right when you come across the Wright Brothers Bridge there. And there was a lady in there. I told her why I was there. And she pointed her finger in my face and she said, "Get your facts right." And then she started telling me about, what was the book and movie, Rodanthe Nights or something about Rodanthe?
Nights
in Rodanthe.
Yes.
She started telling me all the things that were wrong in that book. And she said, "We've all read that down here, and we know everything is wrong in there. So get your facts right." So when I arrived a week ago, first thing I did is I stopped at that place. But I couldn't quite, it had been 3 years, I couldn't quite remember who the woman was. So the first woman I stopped, I said, "You might be the woman that said." She goes, "I've only been here 4 days. And she goes, "It's probably her." And there was a woman sitting there, and she looked up, and I'm thinking, I think that's her.
Yep, that's her.
And she didn't quite remember it, but then she started talking about Nights in Rodanthe and everything that was wrong, and I knew it was her. I said, "Well, here's your book. You see if I got my facts right." One thing I know, I got the facts wrong, but I left it in there just because I liked it. The book's supposed to take place in late August, and if you go now and you drive down Sir Walter Raleigh Street in Manio, those trees, I'm trying to think what the trees are on the side of the road, and they're blooming, and the honeysuckle or whatever it is, and they're spilling the fragrance into the night air.
Right.
And I have a chase scene that goes down there, and I mention that fragrance, and so I know that's not right, but I put it in there just because I liked it when I was driving down there. But it's like I say, all the scenes are basically real. I know only a couple of things have changed that I can think of, but I've changed my locations. Now that the book's out, I don't care if things go away or come, because I did put the disclaimer in the book. And we did have a problem, actually, in the author's note right at the beginning. I think it starts off and says, "Most of the locations used in this novel are real." There was a major misprint there. And I had already ordered 100 books.
Oh, no.
And I called them up. I actually saw it when I did the Kindle. And I called them up, and of course they said, "Oh, well, we'll email you tomorrow." Well, I know while they were talking to me, they were loading those books in the box, and they were shipping them out the door, because like 2 days later they're on my front porch.
Oh, gosh.
And I thought, well, what do I do with all those books? I mean, that's just money thrown away. But I had been a government employee for 30 years, and there's a lot of mistakes in the government.
Right.
And we'd get labels every once in a while, say, "Take this printed label and put it over paragraph 3 in this administrative manual here." So I printed off a really nice label with the corrected text, and I put it inside the book. But I didn't want to sell those books at full retail. So I brought them with me. And I had 100 with me, and those are the ones that have been placed throughout the Outer Banks now that they're selling for $10.
Okay.
And the regular retail value of the book is $15.99 on the book's website, legendobx.com. And but I say they're $10 now until those 100 are gone. But right now I have them placed at the at Tail of the Whale, Cavalier Surf Shop, because there's a scene at Cavalier Surf Shop, and 2 on a Sandbar at Jockey's Ridge Crossing. I don't want to forget anyone. Captain Jones Marine Consignment. And I'm going to meet with Mulligan's right after I leave here. I'm waiting for a call from Protocol. And there's somewhere else. I don't want to leave anyone out. Oh, they're at the Kelly's Gift Shop at Kelly's Restaurant. So that's where they are now. I'm not sure if I can get them in any more places. I've been talking to the bookstore over in Manio. So she has one, she's looking at it, but I don't know whether she's going to carry it or not.
Right.
But right now, like I say, there are and I call them the Lost Edition. So there's the 100.
So those are the collector's
They are the collector's
versions,
items,
right?
because all the other new ones have that correction made. And it's just actually the label was nice because it's that color. So it actually looks like it belongs.
Nice. Well, I know just from our own personal experience, like if there's a movie or a book that we love, and if you can actually go to the place, it makes it extra special. So
I think it is. I mean, it brings everything home, and like I say, you could actually read those spots where you are. And actually, the beginning of the book actually has a map.
Yes.
That shows all the locations in the book where the action takes place. And basically the action runs right from where you cross over the Wright Memorial Bridge down to Oregon Inlet.
Nice.
And Actually, there was, I think I got a couple scenes down at the windsurfing shops down in Avon and Buxton. I think for Fox Water Sports and Ocean Air Sports. And I was down there and I left them some information. But mostly everything is right in that area. It's funny because it starts off, the book starts off up in Michigan with three little boys camping out in a tent every night. Because the main character has a legend of his own, but the evil presence, I'm going to say, in the Outer Banks does go back to the legends of old. So there's actually two legends working against each other. But it starts off with these legends about this character back up in Niles, Michigan, where he comes from. And actually it comes from my own boyhood when, as young adolescent boys, we would talk about this character. His name was Dave Rasputin. And Dave Rasputin drove around in a hearse. He had a hearse with a noose hanging from his rearview mirror. And each story about Dave Rasputin involved, he supposedly had 13 brothers and sisters. And he killed all of them, using these strange means to do it. So the Dave Rasputin stories always involved a new way he had done it. And I only could remember one. And that's the one I used in the book. And I have the little boys telling that story, which sets it up for Dave Rasputin. And the next time you see Dave, they wonder whether he's a real person or not. Next time you see him, he's standing down in Oregon Inlet, looking at the life-saving station in the rain. And he's driving in 1965, is it Mercury Meteor Cadillac hearse. And I use that because I almost bought one time. I was working in the town of Altoona, Pennsylvania for about 6 months, and I'd walk around at my lunch hour, and there was a funeral home there. And they had this 1965 hearse for sale. And I was windsurfing at the time, and I was carting all my equipment around. And I said, boy, that would be perfect.
Yeah. I
was going to put all my equipment on the back, and I was going to have flames painted on the front. And I was just going to cover it with surf stickers. And I took it for a couple test rides, and he wanted $1,000 for it. And this was probably 1985, around there. And I offered him $800, and he didn't take it. And I could kick myself, and I could think, $200.
Right.
But then I remember back, in 1985, I was only earning about, at the most, $11,000 a year. So $1,000 was a lot of money back then. So I understand why I didn't get it. But because I never got it, my character got it. So he's driving around here in a 1965 Cadillac hearse. But that's where the legend part, and then I have him become involved with he's sort of a vagabond type character, a drifter. And he becomes involved with a young professional girl who works, I can't say where she works because it's one of the things in the book that you're not supposed to know. But she works locally, and they find themselves involved, and they're forced together with to battle this other presence in the Outer Banks that's going on behind everyone's back. This whole thing's going on and no one knows it except these three people. And I'm actually staying in a house now. I've been here 2 weeks. This is the second one. I moved into the house that probably provided the inspiration for the house that he's living in. But I also used this house in one of the scenes, which is kind of nice.
Nice. So Dave, I think I've seen that guy on Facebook.
Yeah, well, yeah. You're not allowed to do this. But I've been making preparations as I went along. As I got so involved with the writing, and I had to stop and just get away from it for a while. And that's when I did the cover. And then one time I stopped and I made Dave a person on Facebook, which you're not allowed to do. You have to be a real flesh and blood person. But I gave him a whole history. I mean, I gave him the history of the character, but I never really did anything with it because I didn't want to. I had a friend who was really upset that I did that because, you know, it's hard enough getting friends when you're a real person on Facebook.
Right.
Try getting friends when you're a fictional character. Dave got 600 of them so far. These people have no idea he doesn't exist. So I told my one friend, oh, Dave's got 40 friends. Dave's got 100 friends. And he looked at me and he said, well, actually, I think he did do it in person. I think he goes, you know, they really aren't friends. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, this is just a marketing ploy. Because he's the same person, the first draft I let him read it, and I let my sister read it. And they were a good combination, because my sister would pick up little things that, you know, a miscomment, or commas or something like that. He was a retired engineer who did, I don't know if he did this, but I get the feeling he might have edited manuals and things like that. So as an engineer, he overanalyzes everything, which is good because he questioned everything in the book. And there's a little surprise, I want to say it's about chapter 4. I have a little turnaround, and when he hit my sister, she loved it. She goes, what a pleasant surprise. Now when he got to it, he was not offended, but I think he was angry with himself that he hadn't figured it out. So he goes back to the beginning of the book and reads it again, just to make sure I didn't lie to him somewhere. Because you never lie to the reader. And I think he found one little thing he didn't like. He wanted me to change it. Because I don't think this is real honest right here. But there's a little turn of position, and I'm surprised how people react to it. Some people just love it. Someone told me yesterday he thought it was a mistake. He goes, was that intentional? I said, yes, it was. I said, I didn't lie to you. I just let you think what you want to think, and then I explain something later on. And it's just not the way you thought it was going to be. But I think that's a pleasant little thing.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like it's a great book, and hopefully I'm going to have some time to read it this summer. But
No, take your time.
you also have like a preview version of the novel, which just gives people like a teaser.
It's a teaser, and I wanted to do something like Amazon has that look inside so you can read it. So this was my legend sampler, and it just says excerpts of an OBX novel. I've been leaving these around the Outer Banks for free for people to pick up. When they're sitting by the cash register in some of these businesses, I don't know whether people think they're being charged for them, but they're just free to take. Plus the decal, which is the logo of the book. And these are window decals that are out there, and I've been leaving them at every bar, restaurant I go into. I ask if I can leave a stack of them. People are pretty good. They let me leave them. So stick them on their cars, and it advertises the book. But
awesome.
The sampler, I mean, it takes you, I think it's like chapter 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. It takes you well through, it's almost like the Cliff Notes version of the book, but it goes on so far, and then it cuts you off. And what I tried to do was use the things from the book that identified the real businesses and restaurants.
Right.
So when I went into a place, I said, oh, by the way, you know, your restaurant is listed right here. Do you mind if I leave this on your counter?
Yeah.
And they've been pretty good about it.
That's awesome. So if somebody wants to get the novel, where is the best place that they should go?
Okay. If you go to the website legendobx.com, there's a link for the Kindle and there's a link for the paperback. Plus, there's also a listing of the stores here in the Outer Banks that are carrying that, what I call the blemish version, the lost edition. Those ones are listed there, and as new ones come, I add to it. So they're there, but you can always get it through the website there, and it will put you into a ebook page that's run by Amazon. So if you're part of Amazon Prime, that still works if you buy it through the book's website.
Nice, but the first edition that you spoke of is only available at certain places here on the Outer Banks?
Right now it is, and
there's only 100 copies.
There's only 100 copies. I've got 50 placed. I've got 50 out in the car. When I talked to Mulligan's today, she said we'll take 20, and she thinks Gus might want more. But I told her, I said, you know, when these are gone, they're gone, and then the next ones you sell, they're going to be $5 and $6 more.
Right.
And it's better, I think, to move the $10 one is to move the $16 one.
Definitely, and it's the first edition. So.
That's right. So they may take more, and I'm hoping Protocol will take 10, but and then whatever I have left over, I'm going to take home and try to place around my hometown. Though it's not going to sell as well there but even though there's so many people up in my area that come down here.
Yes, there definitely are.
So usually if I'm parked beside somebody and I see an OBX decal on their car, I stick that on their windshield.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here today and telling us all about your novel.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I'm sure it's going to be a big hit. It sounds like it's an awesome story.
I hope so. I think it's a good story. It's we did have one. Who was it? Tale of the Whale had a woman buy one copy, and she says, "There's no violent sex in this, is there?" And I think it was I forget who she was talking to there. I forget the name of the one owner. Not Carol. It's Kathy. Kathy goes.
And Dan.
Okay, Dan. Kathy goes, this is a family restaurant. I'm sure it's not like that. And then she looked at me with these hopeful eyes.
Right.
I hope I didn't lie to this woman. I said, no, I'd probably be embarrassed to write about it.
Yeah.
But I said, there is murder in here, so there's some violence. It's not overly graphic, but it can be violent, I guess. I have two main murders that take place, and there's a sort of a supernatural bent to the whole thing. But there's also, like I say, there's redemption in it. I actually have a number of priests in this, characters, and two of them are actually real. One is, I added him at the last minute. I was down in Florida, and there was this African priest at the church I was going to. And he was such a wonderful, colorful character. I had to put him into the story. He was just going to be a bit character. And he started taking over. And actually, he changed the plot somewhat. And there was actually, the other priest is fictional, but the third one, he was actually a priest in Pittsburgh. He's a friar. And he'd given a sermon one time that I remembered, and I really liked it. And I wanted to use it in the story, but it was his. And I didn't want to steal his material.
Right.
And it's a novel. You really don't footnote a novel. So I said, what can I do? I said, I'm just going to make him a character. And then he can say it himself. So I put him in there as a character saying it. And I sent him a copy of the book. And right before I came here, I got this wonderful letter back from him. He goes, well, this is a first. He goes, I've never been a character in a book. And he goes, you know that story? He goes, I remember that story well. He goes, I've told that so many times. And he's like, thank you for using it. I'm so glad I could be an inspiration to you. And that's when you use real people, you hope that's the reaction you'll get, especially when you don't go out and ask the permission for it. Because some people could come back and say, I don't want to be connected with this one way or the other. But I portray everybody so well, I don't think anybody would be offended by it.
Right.
I hope.
Right. Yeah, and it's always nice for people to basically become immortal whenever they're featured in a book like this.
And actually the female lead, I never expected to hear from her. And I get this email. She got caught up in the advertising email blast. And I get this email from her saying, oh, this is wonderful. I've just bought my Kindle edition. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know what the reaction's going to be on this. I haven't heard back from her. Maybe she won't read it because I don't know how she's going to react to this. But yeah, she's a real person too, and she's going to know it's her. The minute she reads that, she is going to know who it is. I haven't seen her for 30 years, but she's going to know.
Nice, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming here today and telling us all about your novel. And definitely pick up a copy of this. It sounds like it'd be the perfect read if you're coming here, especially if you're coming here on vacation, sitting in a beach chair on the beach, and it sounds perfect. Thanks so much, Joseph.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm Sue Arts with OBXentertainment.com and OBXE TV, and we'll see you next time.